there's a change in the way that war works. There's still war in the world, but it's not a physical territorial war, although physical territory is affected, and to a certain extent physical territory has always been controlled by psychological territory, but now we're really living in realms of control by psychological territory. Getting to know your own psychology, the way your own mind works, both in a clinical sense and in a spiritual sense, is, I would think, the greatest defense in this time against major movements, many of which will be very harmful to a lot of people. I think it's important to have gratitude about the sorts of war that we don't have anymore. However, we can still learn from history and the record of physical movements and physical manipulations of people. If we extend that to psychological movements and psychological manipulations of people, some of the history will repeat itself on a different circuit. Movements today, although we do have some classical movements and physical protests going on, but movements today aren't necessarily understood as movements because they happen in here and they happen with your device in front of you. And in a certain sense, they don't include the same kind of risk as they once did. And that's something to be grateful for. Without gratitude, going into the future is impossible. If you had no gratitude, like if you really had zero gratitude about anything, I think you'd already be dead. Because there's no life that sustains itself without a will to survive. It's important to understand that there's still a non-human world out there. There's a human world versus a non-human world. And many of the movements going on today in the world name the collective enemy, which is ultimately humanity itself. And to go forward into lots of human conversation, especially in a very politically charged time, is to enter the battlefield. And if you're not well trained psychologically, even if you are well trained psychologically, it's still a battlefield. But yeah, if you're not well trained psychologically or well prepared, you're going to get massacred. You're on the front lines with no weapon, and many are on the front lines with no weapon, or they're bringing into a psychological fight physical weapons, manifestations of anger, and being able to be quickly switched into anger. And if you can be quickly switched into anger by certain things, and you're pretty much ineffectual, because the battlefield is not a physical one, it's a psychological one. Psychology and spirituality are very closely linked, and they might be the same discipline. However, psychology is more of a mechanistic, pragmatic view, whereas spirituality is something that can be more personally understood, I would say, as a connection to being, whereas psychology is something that's useful, and useful to our old mechanisms of physical control. But everything still exists within seeking ye shall find, law of attraction. If you're choosing to vibrate with a certain kind of energy, you will move into a world that includes that same kind of energy, and your expectations will become real. In the words of Christ, or in the understandings of modern quantum physics and quantum mechanics, this is the same ideational territory. With the battle, you may find yourself tempted to enter into it. But with every kind of war that happens in the human world, there's a great percentage of it that's voluntary. You will fight in it if you want to go fight in it. However, there's still a lot of existence outside of that. Though it may be sort of affected by it, there's a temptation to run into it. There's an excitement to run into human conflicts. But if you start to feel stuck in them, remember it was you that wanted to run into that and experience it in the first place. And if you wish to leave, you always can.